I'm going to share screen a decent bit in the next 10 minutes or so because I think visuals will help frame what I'm going to share. I'll try to toggle a little bit between shared screen and looking at you all because that helps me and maybe helps you too. But the intention is to offer a little bit of a menu of where those of us who choose to continue exploring together may choose to explore. And one of the things I want to make really clear, I mean, for one, is like, of course, we're all at choice. And not only are you at choice whether or not we continue exploring, but within continuing to explore, there's a vast spectrum of degrees of engagement that are possible. And so what I'm going to present is kind of the whole menu, and I'm going to try to break it down. And you really can choose your adventure. Like your adventure may consist of like a 1 hour pod call a month in the next, for the next few months. Like that could be your adventure is, like 1 hour a month. And somebody's adventure may be, Karl, let's work, let's get together and create a livelihood and create a source of livelihood for a team of people for the rest of our lives. Like that, I think that full spectrum from my perspective is on the table. So, and really you get to choose your adventure, and hopefully the map and the menu that we're going to look at will give you a sense of the pathways to that adventure. Okay, so that said, I will start sharing screen. Do interrupt me if you're not having an easy time following me. We are recording this though too. I might speak a little quickly at times because I get both super excited and I'm trying to manage time. But we can also slow it down as needed. Okay. All right. So this is a little, you may be getting to know me and how much I seem to be enjoying slideshows these days. I seem to like slideshows. Okay. So the first slide is kind of the overview of where I'm imagining we might look a bit together. And so the overall container, as you see in blue, is the Cultural Catalyst Network. And then we're going to look at these different sort of options of engagement within that container, within the container of the network. And you'll see the colors, and the colors are kind of intentional in that there are sort of degrees of engagement or different sort of, depths of engagement in a sense within the network. So we're going to start by looking at the overall container, the Cultural Catalyst Network itself. And I just wanted to sort of remind us of something, because I know one of the things that we've gotten some feedback on all along, and I think it's so helpful in life in general, is to keep grounding in why are we doing this again? Like, why are we doing TLP, and what is the Cultural Catalyst Network? And so this is actually a statement that was actually part of the slideshow introducing TLP at the beginning, but it seems worth revisiting. So Cultural Catalyst Network, we're called to come together with other people in community to attempt to take wise and courageous action to address the complex challenges of our time. Health crises, climate disruption, racism and nationalism, economic inequality, political divisiveness, species extinction, etc., in ways that create connection, heal separation, and serve the well-being of all life. We believe that engaging these polarizing challenges requires us to cultivate our capacity to hold multiple perspectives, ground our action in inner and interpersonal work, and cultivate an embodied understanding of our individual and collective trauma and oppression. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a moment because I just want to pause on that to say everything that I'm going to say from here on out is within the container of that intention. So that's an attempt to articulate what is the overall purpose that we're aspiring to serve within the Cultural Catalyst Network. So everything from the pods to the learning sessions, to the open space, to the project ecosystem, to the economic system, to the sociocratic governance, is all intended to serve that purpose. how do we co-create? How do we contribute to a planet where all life is held with care, and where we look to address those injuries and to care for the healing of the planet in a way that creates connection rather than more separation? So that's the overall container. And so I'm kind of repeating it with emphasis, just to try to really frame everything else is within that container. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back to sharing screen. All right. Okay, so a little bit more about our vision for the Cultural Catalyst Network is for it to be a self-organizing global network of people aspiring to serve the well-being of all life. So what Rich has talked about, what we've read, what Frédéric Laloux is talking about in Reinventing Organizations is, refers to this concept of self-organizing. And we, as I said in the opening to this presentation, really wanting everyone to recognize that we have choice and flexibility in our form and degree of involvement. And another aspect is that with these 4 weeks, we would like to invite those of you who choose to, and we'll send out something to explain this more fully, but for those who want to step into becoming Cultural Catalyst Network catalysts, which we can explain and has been actually, we have actually a handbook for the Cultural Catalyst Network, which has been actually heavily inspired by Inspiral, which describes the role and responsibility of being a catalyst. But we would love to warmly welcome and invite any of you who want to become catalysts to step into that role. And so more about that to come. And just a reminder that, again, one of the things that's distinctive about the approach of the Cultural Catalyst Network then is that we're attempting to integrate personal, interpersonal, and systemic transformation. Okay, so moving on to the next piece then, what we've done in the last 4 weeks has largely been this focus on pods and buddies and the community learning sessions. So we would love to see those continue for those of us who are drawn to continue with them. And so pods and buddies, again, are intended. What's the intention? The intention is to support connection and belonging, emotional support and empathy, therapeutic practice, peer coaching, project collaboration. It doesn't mean that all of your pods and buddies need to fulfill all of those needs, but depending on what you're looking for from your involvement with this network, these are some of the needs that it might fulfill. Again, all within the context of co-creating a world that works for all life. And we invite folks to keep and or reorganize pods and buddies based on whichever criteria serve your intentions. Some of us may be drawn to a project-focused pod. So a pod focused around an event in Ireland and community of heart space, the yet to be named network, which focuses on racial healing and climate justice. Might be a project around an eco-village or a transformational learning center. So you could have a pod that's focused on that project. And actually, one of the things we're developing is some pod documents that will support different focuses for different pods. You could also have a pod focused on geography or affinity identity. The community learning sessions, based again on feedback, we're imagining continuing them, but spacing them out, probably looking maybe initially at a rhythm of every other week instead of every week to give a little bit more breathing room and integration time. And again, the purpose of the community learning sessions is to support integration of essential practices for personal, interpersonal, and systemic transformation. And this, I'll say more about this, but the sessions and facilitators, we're imagining them being selected by a curriculum circle with input from the entire community. And so you will have the option, if you choose, to become a part of this, to see if it works for you to be a part of this curriculum circle. we're looking at a sociocratic process around that. So we'll say more about that later. But the idea is that, and I'm going to break out of looking just at a slide and see you all again. But the idea is that really anyone could propose themselves or someone else to facilitate a session. Anyone could, so anyone in the network can propose a subject or a facilitator, and then the curriculum circle, which any of us could explore becoming a member of, will be trying helping to design and shape that curriculum. And so we're looking to do that in a way that shares power, but that also like has people who are focused and dedicated on shaping a curriculum doing that. So again, in a teal organizational way. I will keep going with the shared screen. Oh, one last thing about this slide is I intentionally put this slide here to remind myself that we look forward to the day when the community learn sessions are not all online. I look forward to the day when we do in-person gatherings. So as soon as that's reasonable to do, let's do a CCN gathering in the Pacific Northwest. Let's do a CCN gathering in Ireland, in Asia, in, you name it, different parts of the planet. And that's something that we'd always been intending. In fact, TLP was going to be an in-person gathering in June in the Seattle area, and then we pivoted to online, but let's go back to in-person as soon as possible. Okay, next. So beyond what we've done so far with pods and buddies and community learning sessions, we also want to, for those who are interested in sort of moving beyond that, there's also open space sessions and project ecosystem. And fortunately, things like, an example is Lucas has offered a couple game playing sessions, which is a perfect use of the open space session. I'll say a little bit more about all of that. So open space sessions, these are intended to support self-empowerment, self-organizing, leadership development, facilitation, practice, and feedback. They can be offered by any community member. We were thinking of these as alternating weeks, at least initially. So there'll be the community learning sessions, and then on alternating weeks would be the open space sessions. And of course, any time is a time for open space. Like Lucas put something a half hour before this call. And possible sessions, this is not an exhaustive list, but there could be additional learning sessions, project workshopping, group process, coaching, any number of things. So yeah, for example, I know that Marcia and Ruby from Hong Kong have talked about maybe doing a thing on the work that reconnects. I think Donald had mentioned something about like really being excited to, do more kind of connection kinds of activities and such. So anything is fair game. Could be opportunities for deeper interpersonal connection of all different kinds. And then the project ecosystem. So this is where there's the opportunity for those of us who want to engage in deeper collaboration around life-enriching social and ecological projects arising either from within or outside of CCN. So what we have imagined is that next week, there'll be a facilitated process to prepare for a week 7 intention and project ecosystem session, and in which each person will have up to 4 minutes to present a summary of their intentions, projects, requests, and or offerings. And again, I'm gonna not be in presentation mode so long and look at you all, but so the intention of that ecosystem session is for people anywhere on the spectrum. It could be you don't have a clear project, totally fine. You just show up to discover, get to know what other people are up to and maybe get inspired, or maybe you want to contribute and participate some way in somebody else's project. But it's also an intention ecosystem. So for example, my intention might be around, I really want to heal my trauma, and I really want to be doing a lot more work around my inner healing. So I'm just going to share for a few minutes about that intention and then make some requests. Like, I would love to find some other people who would enjoy focusing on like exchanging IFS sessions twice a week and that would be really supportive to me. And what I'd love to offer is, you know, just like my heartfelt listening. Like that's what I have to offer, you know? So it's like anywhere on the spectrum, from personal work to interpersonal work to planetary work, is welcome in that ecosystem. And we want to really disavow any of us from the belief that working on one scale is better than the other. It's like we all are needing to attend to what we need to attend to at different times. And so that ecosystem space is just a space for offers and requests in the community, and just to let each other know what we're up to, so that Jay Corrales in Oakland can learn about other people who are also interested in tiny homes and creating backyard refuges for people who are dealing with housing insecurity and like the vast, like skyrocketing prices of real estate in Oakland or wherever you are on the planet, you know, and where's the synergy with your project, you know? So there could be a team of people looking at in-person, creating in-person community, any number of things. But so that's a place where we'll get to know each other more fully on that level and find where the synergies are for all those levels of transformational work. Okay, I'll take a breath because I know I speak really fast sometimes. Just so much I'm excited to explore with you. Okay, I'm gonna go back. I'm not taking the time to read all the chat, so if somebody sees a chat that I should really hear, feel free to interrupt me. Okay. And I just wanted to acknowledge some of the projects that have arisen largely outside, some actually, two of them outside of CCN and then a couple sort of within CCN. So the Yet to Be Named network I mentioned briefly before, we've got a number of people part of TLP who are part of this North American direct action movement, looking at the intersection of climate justice and racial equity and healing. The Heart Space community and gatherings in Ireland. Some of us are beginning to look at the possibility of creating an IFS for people of color training. And there have been some conversations about a European Transformational Learning Center, just to give some ideas of projects. And of course, intentions are also welcome. Okay, moving to the last part of this diagram, sociocratic governance and economic system. So this is for the people who are really excited to dive deeper into self-organizing and collective governance. So this is to support self-organization, collective intelligence, and shared power. It's definitely optional, but we want you all to know that if you choose to be a part of the Cultural Catalyst Network, you're welcome to explore becoming more engaged in something like what's called a general circle. And then we're imagining a curriculum circle forming. And actually, Leonie, can I hand it over to you? Want to speak again briefly to
Sure.
just a little bit what we mean by that?
Sure. So, you're welcome. Essentially, as Karl mentioned, that we're right now looking for members to join the general circle, whose immediate task or first task will be to support the digestion of the learning that has come from our time together, and then it will split itself in whatever way that it determines. As Karl suggested, that there's likely to be a curriculum circle, but that will be affirmed by the general circle. And essentially what we have done is created a document that describes what the role is and the responsibilities, which I'm going to share here now. And I'm also going to share my screen to show the document as well. So we're recruiting general circle members. There's a term end date, but that will ultimately be determined by are you seeing the role description now? Okay. And the responsibilities would be there's going to be a series of meetings. We're looking to have those meetings between 8 and 2100 Pacific time. And the invitation is for you to take a closer look at this document to see whether or not there is a possibility for you to join the General Circle member, join as a General Circle member. And then what we are doing is we are inviting you to update your When is Good survey, the survey that was sent to you by Karl prior to our starting this cohort, and then also to indicate your interest in the member list. So you would just go to the member list document, which has been referenced here and is available in the key information document. And there's a K column, and in the K column, you would just put in a few words about why you would like to be considered to be a General Circle member. And then we're closing that off by 1700 hours on May 27th. So that's essentially the process that we have initiated so far. Is there more that you want to hear from me, Karl, or will that do?
That was wonderful. Thanks so much, Leonie.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna figure out how to, there we go, stop share.
Thanks so much. Okay, so I'm almost done, and we'll have a little space to digest and reflect too before we finish the call. And I'm just going to share screen again for our last couple slides. So yeah, so as Leonie said, the invitation here is you don't need to be familiar yet with sociocracy in order to explore becoming a part of the General Circle. But you can learn as you go. But it's a powerful way to look at governance and decision making in a way that honors everyone's voice and uses consent rather than consensus, which is an interesting distinction. And last but not least is economic system. I know that we did not end up spending as much time in the first 4 weeks explicitly articulating this piece. We thought it would be good to focus on some other pieces first, given some limited time. But really excited for those of us, particularly those of us who are wanting to, that we do some exploration around supporting life-enriching resource flows, mutual aid, and economic justice. There's a whole lot of experiments we can be doing, initiatives including reparations, basically, particularly in, let's say, places like North America, but also there are probably examples all over the planet, but I'm most familiar with in North America, really addressing the stolen land of native peoples and the enslavement of people from Africa. And how do we begin to even take steps toward addressing those harms in both economic and other ways, but also forms of community resource mapping, looking at and experimenting with cooperative economics, alternative currencies, gift economics. Rich has actually shared some really cool resources with me that folks in the other Microsolidarity efforts have been using as well. So lots that we can do there. So just returning to this final slide to say, this is the whole kind of network that we're inviting you all into exploring together. And again, it's choose your own adventure, choose your own degree of engagement within that map. I'm gonna take a breath, and Rich, maybe you can even help me out in terms of like helping remind me of where we thought we might go from here. I'm just gonna say one thing first, is to say, the intention with opening this up, like for those of you who are less familiar, especially with self-organizing, like the intention behind this is many things. I mean, one is like to open source this adventure together is partially, it's what we believe is the path to creating the world that works for all. We believe that we need to embody different relationships to power and resources, and that we need to live it together. We can't just talk about it. We can't just read about it. We actually have to live shared power. And we've done it imperfectly in the past 4 weeks. Like Leonie, Marcia, Amy, and I on our team, boy, like we learn together about like how my unconscious white male privilege like is evidence, prolifically evident in terms of, my unconsciousness and the impact. So we need to really get into the muck together and have platforms that support us to live into something different together. And so this, this idea of a self-organizing network where people choose their forms of engagement is really sort of our attempt to try to walk the talk. And especially, like, to me, actually, the last pieces are where I get really excited. Like when we look at governance and economics, like that's when we're really getting at the underlying workings of capitalism and domination culture. And I know that not everybody has the bandwidth to be doing all of that right now. So we want to create a range of options. The other reason why we're doing this is, like, frankly, doing it the way even we've done these past 4 weeks economically is not energetically or economically sustainable for us. It's like, I've loved the past 4 weeks. It's like been a passionate love, and I can't keep it up. I couldn't keep it up even if I was paid a huge salary to keep it up. And so, like, we also want to be experimenting with something that is where we're all taking responsibility for our part, whether it's small or large, in the co-creation of community. So I just want to give that bit of context as well.